Insulin dosing for your toddler or young child can feel like a guessing game, but it doesn't have to. If you give me just 7 minutes, I'll help you feel a little bit more confident with every single dose, even if your child's eating habits or blood sugars seem unpredictable. Stick around to the end because I'll also share a game-changing tip that helped me avoid those sticky highs and really scary lows. Hi, I'm Brittany, a former pharmacist and T1D mom to my son who was diagnosed at 18 months old. When my son was first diagnosed, I found myself staring at his plate doing both the mental and literal math, hoping that I was right. But every meal felt like a risk. Today, I'll show you 5 strategies that took insulin dosing or mealtime from a gamble to a science, including one method that changed everything for us. Okay, let's get right into it. The first thing that I want you to know is to know your child's ratios and factors. Your child's insulin-to-carb ratio tells you how many grams of carbs are covered by 1 unit of insulin. For example, if your child's ratio is 1:20, then that means that 1 unit of insulin will cover 20 grams of carbs. The next thing I want you to know is the correction factor, or the CF, and that is how much 1 unit of insulin would lower the blood sugar by. For example, if the CF is 1:50, then that means that 1 unit of insulin will lower your child's blood sugar by 50 points. And if you're unsure of these numbers, then always reach out to your healthcare team or your child's endocrinologist, because having these numbers on hand is the firm foundation for which all dosing decisions are made. But knowing ratios is just the start. How do you actually put them into practice at mealtime? Well, let's get into it. So the next step is calculating the dose. And that's where you're going to put the correction factor and the insulin to carb ratio into practice. So here's how we're going to put this to work. We're going to count up the carbs in your child's meal. Let's say 30 grams of carbs in this particular meal. Now you'll divide by your ICR. If the ratio is 1:15, then you'll take that 30 grams of carbs and divide it by 15, and that will give you 2 units of insulin that will be needed to cover the carbs in that meal. Next, you'll check their blood sugar, either by finger poke or checking their CGM. And if your child doesn't have a CGM and you're able to get one, oh my goodness, complete game changer. Please get one if you don't already have one. If the blood sugar is high, then your child might need a correction dose. So for example, if your child is at 250 and your target is 150, then that's 100 points that need to be corrected. In this case, you'll use the correction factor. And if the factor is 1:50, then you'll need another 2 units of insulin to correct, because that would be 100 divided by 50 would equal the 2 units. Now you'll add it all together, 2 units for the meal and 2 units for the correction, equaling 4 units in total. Even with perfect math, timing matters just as much. So when should you give that dose? Let's talk all about pre-bolusing now. If you can, try to give insulin a 10 to 15 minute head start prior to meals. This helps to match the insulin's action to the meal's digestion to prevent those post-meal spikes. Before we started pre-bolusing, because my endo told us in the beginning, hey, just give insulin and then immediately feed your kid, my son would have crazy highs for hours after his meal. But I found pre-bolusing and now that's all fixed. Well, most of the time we still have issues sometimes because diabetes has a mind of its own. But now his blood sugars are much more stable. But of course, a life with a young child or toddler is far from predictable. So what do you do if activity levels or sensitivity change the game? Here's how to stay ahead. The fourth thing that I want to share with you is activity level matters. If your child has just been active, they actually might need a little bit less insulin. If they're about to run around, you may want to back off a little bit on the insulin then too. Also consider insulin sensitivity. Are they a little bit more sensitive at different times of the day or less sensitive at different times of the day? For my son, mornings need a lot more insulin than in the afternoons. So I always like to factor that in to my dosing decisions. But what if you're still unsure? When in doubt, start small. It's okay to start with a conservative dose and adjust later. It's often safer to correct a bit of a high than to chase a low, especially with a toddler or young child who may not always tell you exactly how they feel. My rule of thumb is to err on the side of caution because a slight high can be more easily adjusted to than a scary low. And if all of this feels overwhelming, there's one simple strategy that helped me to connect the dots and feel more confident in my son's insulin dosing. And that was keeping a log. Tracking doses, meals, and blood sugar responses can help you spot patterns. I use the Notes app on my phone or a diabetes app to log everything. That's been a game changer for me, giving me more confidence with every dose because I have something to refer back to, some historical data that, okay, I did this happened. Let's see if I can recreate that. I'm sharing these tips because I've been exactly where you are and still am. I live this every single day, second guessing every dose and feeling the pressure. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. Confidence with your child's insulin dosing comes down to understanding your child's unique needs, practicing and giving yourself grace. You got this. If you found these tips helpful, check out my other videos for more T1D management strategies. You're doing an amazing job. I hope to see you in the next video.